Okay, so good afternoon once again, friends. We want to continue our lesson on chemical pathology. Okay, chemical pathology. So today we are going to talk about another interesting topic in chemical pathology, which is known as routine urine examination. This routine urine examination is one of the tests that we commonly perform in our facilities. So it is very important as a biomedical student or as a medical laboratory student or physician assistant student to understand this routine urine examination, okay, so that in case you are in the facility and a patient comes with a disease condition, request this routine urine examination, you will be able to explain parameters, the increase or decrease level of some parameters in the lab. Okay, so I will move straight to the things that we'll be discussing for today. So we will talk about urine formation, okay, how urine is formed. We will talk about that. We will also talk about macroscopic examination, okay, macroscopic examination. So when you take your urine sample, when a patient brings urine to your lab, okay, the things that you see with your naked eye, the things that you record, that is the microscopic examination. We will talk about that. We also talk about some abnormal chemical constituent in urine, and we will end by looking at a microscopic examination of urine. The microscopic examination of urine. So a lot of topics, So let's proceed. So we start by looking at urine formation. So I will send you guys back to a little bit of anatomy, okay. So this structure we see there is the kidney, okay, the kidney. When you look at the kidney, we have the structural unit of the kidney, which is called the nephron. Okay, so in the nephron we have the cortex and the medulla. Okay, so urine formation actually occurs in the nephron. Okay, so we have the cortical nephron and the juxtamedullary nephron. So in the cortex, urine formation starts to the medullary. Okay, so formation of urine basically involves three major steps. Okay, three major steps. The first one we call the glomerular filtration. Okay, glomerular filtration. And then we have the tubular ray absorption. The tubular ray absorption. And the last one we have the tubular secretion. And so I will throw more light on these three. Okay, so remember always that formation of urine, okay, involves three basic methods. Okay, the first one we talk about is the glomerular filtration, the tubular ray absorption, and tubular secretion. Okay, now if you take the kidney, okay, there are structures in the kidney. Now the first one I'll talk about is the glomerulus. Okay, glomerulus. Now this portion is the glomerulus. If you look at the diagram where there is efferent arteriole and afferent arteriole. The afferent arteriole is the blood vessel that carries blood to the glomerulus, and the efferent arteriole is the vessel that carries the blood away from the glomerulus, okay, to the peritubular capillaries. Now, when blood vessel, that's the afferent arterioles, carries blood to the glomerulus. Now, the glomerulus is actually surrounded by a capsule, okay, which is made up of capillaries. So we call that one glomerular capsule, okay. So you have the glomerulus, which is surrounded by a capsule. And so there is a space between the glomerular capsule and the glomerulus itself, okay. So the space between the glomerular capsule and the glomerulus is what is called the capsular space. The capsular space. Now, the capsular space is where filtrates are deposited after ultrafiltration, okay. So we talk about that. Now, this is what happens in urine formation. There is glomerular filtration, and when we say glomerular filtration, that one is the movement of substances from the blood within the glomerulus into the capsular space, okay. So I've spoken about the capsular space, that it is the space between the glomerulus and the glomerular capsule, and of course the glomerular capsule is the capillaries that surrounds the glomerulus, okay. So when we say glomerular filtration, it is the movement of substances from the blood within the glomerulus into the glomerular capsule. Now, what substances are moved from the blood to the capsular space? That one is very, very important when it comes to urine formation. Now, remember always that the filtration or the ultrafiltration process in the glomerular capsule is done by molecular size, okay. It's basically based on molecular size. What am I trying to say? Now, when we say ultrafiltration, ultra, very, very small molecules are being allowed to be filtered. And so substances with larger molecular size cannot undergo ultrafiltration. For instance, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, all these blood cells are very large, and so under no circumstance will you see them in ultrafiltration, or will you see them in the glomerular filtrate. Let me put it like that. You understand that? Because of their large molecular size, they cannot be found in the glomerular filtrate. They can't exist, or they can't pass through the pores, okay. And so remember always that I said substances which have larger molecular size, examples are the blood cells. It could be platelets, could be white blood cells, could be the other blood cell, red blood cells. They are not allowed to be seen in glomerular filtrate because of their large molecular size. Not those ones alone. Can have some large proteins like albumin, okay. Albumin is very large, so under no circumstance you will see albumin in ultrafiltration, okay. On the other hand, substances with smaller molecular size, okay, which of course we can get the red blood cell, we can get the substances with smaller molecular size like glucose, okay, some amino acids, some fats, soluble vitamins, electrolytes like bicarbonate, like sodium, potassium, calcium, and some waste product of metabolism like creatinine and urea. They have a smaller molecular size, and so they can pass through the glomerular filtrate, okay. So the bottom line is that during ultrafiltration, larger molecules are not allowed to enter the glomerular filtrate, but smaller molecules or molecule with lesser molecular weight, like I made mention, could be glucose, okay, some amino acid, electrolytes, waste product of metabolism like urea and creatinine, can be seen in ultrafiltration. Remember always that albumin, which is a protein, is very large, and so therefore it is not allowed to form part in the glomerular filtrate, okay. So in the capsular space, the possible substances that can be found in the glomerular filtrate can include glucose, urea, creatinine, some electrolyte like bicarbonate, some amino acid, and some fat soluble vitamins. So that's the first portion of urine formation, ultrafiltration. Now, all these filtrates in the glomerular capsule will then move through the tubules of the kidney. So they'll first go through the proximal convoluted tube. Okay, proximal convoluted tube. Then from the proximal convoluted tube, they descend through the descending loop of Henle and the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Okay, so there in the tubular capillaries, okay, once the filtrates are passing through the proximal convoluted tubules, there is what is called tubular ray absorption. Tubular ray absorption. Now, what is tubular ray absorption? Now, you know the composition of the filtrates. Okay, so during the movement of the filtrate in the proximal convoluted tubules, okay, now the tubular ray absorption occurs. The tubular ray absorption is basically the movement of substances from the tubular fluid back into the blood. Okay, so there are some substances that are reabsorbed from the glomerular filtrates. They are reabsorbed, so they cannot be found in urine. Okay, what are some of these substances? Now, glucose is reabsorbed. Take note of that. Glucose is reabsorbed. Okay, the electrolytes, bicarbonate, sodium, they are all reabsorbed. Okay, to some extent, some amino acids are being reabsorbed. Okay, and more importantly, urea, about 50% of urea is reabsorbed. Remember always that these substances, if they are reabsorbed, they cannot undergo tubular secretion, and hence they cannot be found in urine. Okay, so remember that glucose is reabsorbed, about 50% of urea is reabsorbed, the electrolytes are reabsorbed, fat soluble vitamins are reabsorbed. Okay, very, very important. If you understand this, urinalysis will be very simple for you. Okay, and so if after reabsorption, okay, the remaining substances move through the distal convoluted tube to the collecting duct. Now, in the distal convoluted tube, another process occurs, which is the final process of urine formation. That one is called tubular secretion. Okay, tubular secretion. What is tubular secretion? That one is the movement of substances from the blood into the tubular fluid. Okay, so now the remaining substances, okay, are secreted into the tubular fluid. Okay, then they enter the collecting duct and they are found in urine. So at a normal circumstance, substances that can be found in tubular secretion or that can be found in urine can have creatinine, because creatinine is freely excreted. Okay, that is why creatinine is very, very important in the estimation of urine function. And so in most labs, when they want to estimate the function of kidney, they don't rely on urea, because urea, about 50% is reabsorbed. Okay, so you can't, based on urea results, to say that this person is, having kidney disease or that. But the one that you can be more reliable of is the creatinine, because at a normal circumstance, it must be fully excreted by the kidney. So folks, what I just did is to elaborate on how urine is formed and some component that can be found in urine of normal person. So always remember that if someone is healthy and you perform urinalysis test, okay, and another circumstance that you have to see protein, because even proteins like albumin cannot pass through the glomerular filtrate. Okay, and another circumstance that you have to see the blood cells, and another circumstance that you have to see some larger molecules like some fats. Okay, and of course glucose shouldn't be there because it's reabsorbed. Maybe you see some of urea, but then at least shouldn't be plenty, because 50% of urea is reabsorbed. No electrolytes should be in urine of normal person because they are being reabsorbed. okay, but substances like creatinine, can be seen in urine. Okay, if you understand this, then I guess we can proceed to the other aspects. So I've explained all these things, the glomerular filtrating. So in the lab, when a patient comes to the lab and maybe the clinician suspects some problem with the urinary tract or other thing, request for urinalysis. What are the samples that we can use for urinalysis test? So we have one sample we call the early morning sample for qualitative test. Okay, so maybe you ask the patient to come early in the morning, okay, to bring urine sample. That one you use it for qualitative test. And then we have the random sample collection, which is the routine one that we normally do in the lab. Okay, spot urine. That one is common. Okay, anytime you can take that sample. And then you have the 24-hour sample for quantitative test. Then we have the midstream sample. Maybe you suspect some urinary tract infection, so you ask the patient to bring midstream urine. Okay, so we can have the postprandial sample for diabetes mellitus. Okay, so folks, this one is basically to inform my medical lab student that there are options available. Okay, so it depends on the type of test that you want to perform. Okay, you go for the right sample at the right time. Okay, always remember that you can take early morning sample, you can take random sample, 24-hour sample for quantitative, and midstream sample for UTI, and then postprandial sample for diabetes mellitus. Very, very important. So talking about urine examination, we look at the macroscopic examination, and we look at the microscopic and some chemical constituent in urine. So let's start with macroscopic examination. Macroscopic examination. So for macroscopic examination of urine, we look at the volume of urine. Okay, what's the normal volume of urine? So if a patient is producing more urine, what may be the cause? If a patient is not producing the exact urine, or the amount of urine that's supposed to be produced by a patient is decreasing, what may be the cause? Okay, very, very important if you understand this concept. Then we look at the color of urine. So in the lab, what is the normal color of urine? Okay, so in pathological state, what may be the color? We talk about that. pH of urine, odor, and specific gravity. This one forms the macroscopic examination. And in most cases, for the color, we use our naked eyes. Okay, for the volume, you can measure the volume in the lab. For the pH, you can use the test strips. Okay, and odor, for the odor, can smell. Specific gravity, most of the time we use the test strip. Okay, so these are the macroscopic, the ones that we can easily see. So let's talk about the volume of urine. So at a normal circumstance, every normal person is supposed to produce urine volume between 600 to 1550 ml. Okay, very important. So this is the volume of urine that every normal person should produce. Okay, there are some situations where a patient will produce urine which is greater than 2000 ml, a lot of urine. Okay, which is called polyuria. Okay, so polyuria is a disease condition. At a normal circumstance, you are supposed to produce urine between 600 to 1550, and you are producing greater than 2000 ml, which is very, very bad. Okay, so we call that one polyuria. You produce excess amount of urine. And there are some situations too. Some patients will produce lesser amount of urine, about less than 400 ml. Okay, produce less than the volume required. That one is oliguria. Okay, so oliguria too is a disease state. Okay, then we talk about anuria. Anuria is basically the complete cessation of urine. Okay, so you produce about less than 200 ml of urine. You can't urinate. Okay, which is very bad. And then nocturia. Nocturia is when basically adults produce urine which is greater than 500 ml. The specific gravity of 1.018 at night. Okay, that one too is very bad. So my biology students, nocturnal animals like Planeta Americana, those stuff, they can be seen in the night. So nocturnal, they work in the night. So here, nocturia, like producing about 500 ml of urine with specific gravity of 1.018 at night. Okay, very important. So I'll take two of the things here and talk about them. I'll talk about the polyuria and the oliguria. What will cause a person to produce more urine? What will cause a person to produce less urine? That one is very important. So causes of polyuria: someone producing so many amount of urine. One is diabetes mellitus. Of course, remember that in diabetes mellitus there is what is called glucose-induced osmotic diuresis. Okay, so there's a lot of glucose in the blood, and so glucose will cause osmotic diuresis. A lot of water will be lost from the ECF, the extracellular fluid. Okay, and then it will be found in urine. Okay, so glucose is causing loss of water from the ECF, inducing diuresis, and so a lot of urine will be produced in people who are diabetic. And another way is that if you are diabetic and you have impaired function of ADH is a hormone called anti-diuretic hormone. Okay, it prevents diuresis. So if that hormone is impaired, okay, there will be continuous diuresis, which will cause your increased level to be high. The bottom line is here is that diabetes mellitus increases the volume of urine. So if you know any diabetic patient, you see that they will tell you that I have been urinating frequently. Okay, every night I urinate about 4 or 5 times, which is as a result of diabetes induced osmotic diuresis, and their volume, the urine volume, will be very high. Of course, it is very important to understand that. Okay, so for polyuria, you suspect diabetes mellitus. Another one is insipidus. Okay, insipidus and mellitus. Insipidus actually occurs in the brain, so that one too induces polyuria. Okay, and the polycystic kidney. Polycystic kidney is an inherited disorder in which clusters of cysts develops in the kidney. So when you have clusters of cysts which develop in your kidney, it may impair the actual function of the kidney to produce normal urine. So you turn up producing a lot of urine. Okay. Another cause of polyuria is chronic renal failure. So your kidney is not more performing its function, and so therefore you see lesser amount of urine. Okay. You produce a lot of urine as being required by the kidney. The kidney regulates the amount of urine to be produced, and so if the kidney is failed, of course regulation mechanisms are impaired, and therefore you are going to produce a lot of urine. Okay. So diuretics, like I said, so if you are on osmotic diuretics, okay, or any other form of diuretic, but musically I'll talk about the osmotic diuresis, like Grebenkramer is the diabetic drug. Osmotic diuretics, example. So we can make mention of mannitol, okay, mannitol, and maybe isosorbide. So if you are on mannitol or isosorbide, there will be a lot of urine. Okay, you produce a lot of urine because they causes osmotic diuresis. Very important. And so what may be the cause of oliguria? You produce less amount of urine. Dehydration. Okay, so if you are dehydrated, can produce less amount of urine. Okay, and dehydration can be due to vomiting, diarrhea, and excessive sweating. Okay, profuse sweating. In all these cases, it's likely to, see a patient with oliguria. Okay, so another one is renal ischemia. There's poor perfusion to the kidney, which can lead to oliguria. Acute tubular necrosis. Okay, when there is acute tubular necrosis to a disease of the kidney, it can lead to production of oliguria or low level of urine. Another cause is obstruction to the urinary tract. When your UTI, the urinary tract is obstructed it can be due to bacterial infection, any other cause. you may not produce a lot of urine. Okay, very important. So let's talk about the color and appearance of urine. Of course, normal urine is supposed to be clear and pale yellow. Okay, pale yellow is like straw color, you know. Yeah, I hope you're not straw. So those of you who have been in the lab before, when you take blood sample from a patient, you spin, there are 3 sediments: the upper layer, the sediments, and the layer between the upper layer and the sediments. The upper layer, which looks like yellow, is called a straw. That's the plasma. Okay, so urine color is like the plasma after sedimentation, which is straw. So here we say it is clear and pale yellow. Okay, that's the normal urine color. And then sometimes the urine may be dilute, you know. Dilute urine appears pale in color. Okay, so if your urine is dilute, like it is not concentrated with substances, but it is dilute. When we say something is dilute, you understand? Okay, you dilute the urine with water, you know. So dilute urine appears pale in color. Okay, so when you are in the lab and you receive a urine which is pale, you just maybe it could be like it has been diluted, you know. And then a concentrated urine has a dark yellow appearance. Okay, so when the urine is concentrated, it looks like dark yellow. So see that one, the specific gravity may be high, you know. So remember always that for a concentrated urine, it has a dark yellow appearance. Then yellow color is due to the pigments urochrome, urobilin, and porphyrins. You know, when there is breakdown of RBC, you see all these things. Okay, but hemoglobin breakdown leads to porphyria. You know, you see a lot of porphyrins in the urine, and when there is porphyrins in urine, there's likely to see urochrome and urobilin. All these things impact yellow color to urine. Okay, and then jaundice. Okay, jaundice. When the patient is jaundiced, there's a lot of bilirubin deposits in there, so you likely to see yellow color of the urine. Very important. Colorless urine being colorless, maybe there is dilution, diabetes mellitus, and some diuretics. They make the urine to be colorless. Color, when the urine appears milky, let's say purulent genitourinary tract infection, Bancroftian filariasis, and you know, sometimes when you see red urine color, the urine appears red, you suspect hematuria. Okay, hemoglobin in urine can be as a result of some genetic disorders like sickle cell, DSPD deficiency, because there's breakdown of RBC, which may cause a lot of hemoglobin, okay, in the blood. You know, of course, when there's breakdown of RBC, you know, sometimes some can be found in the urine, and the color will appear red. And then in patients with urinary schistosomiasis, that one too, the urine color appears red. Sometimes it may be cloudy or sometimes hazy. Suspect UTI when it's cloudy or hazy. So urine pH. Reaction reflects the ability of the kidney to maintain normal hydrogen concentration in the plasma and extracellular fluid. So physiologically, so the pH of urine is slightly acidic, about around 6.3. Okay, the pH determines the acidity or alkalinity of the urine. Very important. So what may cause urine to be more acidic? You know, urine should be more acidic. One cause is diabetic ketoacidosis. Okay, DKE, diabetic ketoacidosis. So you check the spelling where it's diabetic ketoacidosis. Okay, DKE. Of course, in DKE there is what is called metabolic acidosis. So definitely, your urine will appear more acidic. Okay, I will talk about DKE in my next video. So I will explain why there is metabolic ketoacidosis. And then with some patients who are feverish, you know, fever can cause the urine to be more acidic. And sometimes starvation. Because in starvation too, there is the position of ketones in the blood, which may lead to metabolic acidosis. Okay, you know, acid therapy, patient on acid therapy, you know, that one too, their urine will be more acidic. Infections by E. coli. Okay, so urinary tract infection by E. coli. E. coli makes the urine more acidic, you know. And then some causes of alkaline urine. What will make your urine look more basic? One is alkaline therapy. Here we have acid therapy. Here we have alkaline therapy. And of course, here we have spermatozoa. So when there are spermatozoa in urine sample, it appears more alkaline. Okay. And UTI infection by Proteus. E. coli gives the urine to be more acidic, and Proteus causes the urine to be more basic. Strict vegetarian, patients who are strict vegetarian, for them too, you can have urine to be more alkaline, you know, systemic alkalosis. And so odor. Normal urine is odorless to some ammonia smell. Okay, but then in a disease state, the smell may be different. Okay, for instance, when there is diabetic ketoacidosis, the smell of urine may look like acetone, like you smell acetone, you know, because in diabetic ketoacidosis there is the position of acetoacetate. Okay, so this acetone, when the patient is rushed to your facility and you suspect that no, this is decay, after measuring the level of glucose, and you get about 33.3 above, you know, you can also smell acetone. Okay, fruity smell, know the smell of acetone, and that one will influence that the patient may have decay. So in disease condition, the smell may be different. Okay, bacteria action induce ammonica smell, and then ketonuria, fruity smell, like I use the DKA for example. So specific gravity gives the amount of solute in the urine. That one measures how many particles in person's urine compared with water. Okay, so the number of particles in an individual's urine, okay, compared with water. So normal values ranges from 1.005 to 1.03. That one is measured by urinometer, okay, refractometer, and dipstick. So urinometer is this one, and you can search for the refractometer. Of course, I haven't used the urinometer before. Okay, most of the time what we use is a dipstick in the lab, you know. So causes of high specific gravity. What may be as a result of high specific gravity? So someone comes to your lab, you run the urinalysis result, see that no, the specific gravity is very high. Why? May be due to dehydration. Okay, because when you are dehydrated, okay, there are more substances concentrated in your urine. Okay, the water level is low, so dehydration can cause high level of specific gravity. And of course, dehydration can be due to diarrhea, vomiting, profuse sweating, and hemorrhage. Okay, and then all causes of the oliguria that we spoke about. Remember that? You can go back and reflect. All the causes of oliguria can cause. So if you have impaired renal function, you know, you can lead to oliguria. Glycosuria, when you have a lot of glucose in the urine, okay, it will increase the specific gravity. So it means that most of the times patients with diabetes, most of them, not always, have specific gravity, high specific gravity. So low specific gravity when you have congestive cardiac failure. Why? Because there is hypovolemia. Okay, low level of plasma volume. When there is hypovolemia, okay, there is what is called accumulation of solutes, substances in the blood as compared to the urine. Okay, so the urine will be less specific. All causes of polyuria except glycosuria. So we spoke about the causes of polyuria except glycosuria causes low specific gravity. So there's one condition we call the azoturia. Okay, azoturia is when you have a specific gravity of 1.010. That one is seen in chronic disease when kidney has lost the ability to concentrate or dilate. Okay, it's a phase specific gravity, very important.